What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show. We discuss everything going on here in our country, in Washington, D.C., and everything you need to know about on a daily basis, including money, investing, the stock market, the fourth stimulus package update, and stimulus check update. We cover it all here on our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure to click the subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on new videos that come out here on our YouTube channel every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember, it's completely free to subscribe, so do so now if you haven't done so. And also, thanks so much for hitting the like button. We got a lot to cover here because there's a lot going on. First up, Congress may have come to a deal on banning all Russian oil imports into the United States here. They haven't voted on this yet, but this really could greatly affect Americans and the price at the pump. But this might be the right thing to do. Here's the details. Top officials in Congress reached an agreement Monday, apparently, on legislation that would ban Russian oil imports to the U.S. and end Russia's permanent normal trade relations status in response to the war in Ukraine. According to a Senate aide who said this anonymously to discuss private deliberations. Voting could come swiftly, but no schedule has been set yet, and it would have to pass the House and the Senate, and the president would have to sign it. That's a big deal there, because President Biden has been reluctant on this because this would raise gas prices even higher, as they're well over $4 a gallon on the average and much higher in some prices. And if they go even higher, well, and they ban Russian oil, it's a lose-lose situation for Biden. Some people are going to blame him for this. Some people are going to blame him for banning the Russian oil. Some people are going to blame him for not banning the Russian oil. It's a lose-lose situation either way. Check this out.
There's growing pressure for the White House to ban oil and gas coming from Russia. You've heard about this. Today, a bipartisan group of lawmakers said they agreed on legislation that would do exactly that: ban oil and energy income, or I should say, into the United States. The question is whether the president will sign it. Uncertainty has oil crossing $130 a barrel for the first time since 2008. At the pump, the average price for a gallon of gas is north of $4. That's up 13% from just last week, all according to AAA. But it's much worse in some parts of California. These are images of a gas station in Los Angeles. People there are paying nearly $7 a gallon. That means it would cost $83 to fill up a small car with an average gas tank of about 12 gallons. Larger cars that typically hold 16 gallons, $110 to fill it up. Putin may be viewing the rising gas prices as a bargaining chip, according to analysts. Russian state media portraying it as a way to sober up Americans and force Washington to negotiate with Moscow. CNBC senior White House correspondent Kayla Tausche now. Kayla, President Biden spoke with his counterparts in NATO today about a potential ban on Russian energy imports. What came out of that meeting?
Well, Chef, the White House has said publicly there's no final decision on whether to ban imports of Russian oil to the United States, but discussions continued with transatlantic leaders on energy security and contingency planning. While allies like the UK and Japan may also pursue an oil embargo, CNBC has learned Europe is not expected to take part because there's no ample replacement yet. Last year, Europe imported 99 billion euros worth, or about $107 billion in Russian oil and gas. The U.S., by comparison, imported just about $4.7 billion in oil, and the U.S. imported $29 billion in all trade categories combined. Some Wall Street analysts have suggested a coordinated ban could push prices to $200 a barrel if it included Europe. But there's a view within the White House that prices already reflect an American ban on Russian oil because big companies have already been balking at doing that business.
The world oil industry basically just dropped Russian oil like a bad habit. And for example, I confirmed last week with Valero that they're not buying any Russian crude and haven't been. And you've seen one cargo that Shell said it had bought became a public relations disaster for Shell. The reality is it's already done. We're not buying Russian oil.
Tonight, a top Kremlin official stoking fear on state television, warning the West that prices could triple. But U.S. lawmakers, in rare agreement on the issue, are unbowed. Democrat Joe Manchin from energy-rich West Virginia has pushed the administration for deregulation, but says supporting Ukraine is worth it.
I believe the American people would, if they basically pay, if they had to, seeing that they're saving freedom and saving lives of people, innocent people.
A deal including such a ban on Capitol Hill is expected in the next day. The White House says discussions to tap into more oil from Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, and even Iran are still underway.
Yeah, so experts say that even though we only import 5 to 8% of our oil from Russia, that it would hit U.S. prices hard, and U.S. gas prices are already being hit hard. So, yeah, it's, the problem is the price of oil is traded basically on a stock exchange globally. So the price of oil is trending up here basically every single day. And well, you've seen those gas prices, almost $7 a gallon in some parts of California and LA. Yeah, and the problem is that the crisis in Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, and Putin doesn't seem like Putin's going to be stopping anytime soon. However, one thing that could potentially stop the war or start World War III is Ukraine joining the EU or Ukraine joining NATO. It's a very similar thing here. You can see here the EU, the European Union, officially agrees to look at requests for Ukraine to join the EU, as well as Georgia and Moldova to join the EU. Remember that also Moldova, there was a plan basically leaked by accident that Russia and Belarus has plans to invade Moldova as well. So the EU is now officially looking at requests for these three countries to potentially join the EU. Now, the EU is normally known for its years-long process of validating new member states, often lasting up to a decade. But they said that they are now looking at these applications. After their opinion is given, member states are required to vote unanimously in favor of each new nation's candidacy for membership. Ukraine has asked the EU to fast-track its membership process during the war. The country has also pleaded to become part of NATO alliance during the conflict, a request against which the alliance has shown resistance for NATO. But some EU member states have endorsed Ukraine's membership in the Commission, despite resistance to the idea based on fears of Russian conflict within the West. And remember that the EU is actually going out of their way for the first time ever to literally fund and pay for weapons and deliver weapons to Ukraine. This is the first time they've ever done this. And if Ukraine does join the EU, they have a treaty that's similar to NATO. Here's kind of how it works. What happens if Ukraine joins the EU? Here's kind of the most important part here. Ukrainian President Zelensky has signed an application for his country to join the EU after the first round of discussions between Ukraine and Russia ended without any meaningful progress. They've now had 3 rounds, and of course, Russia, there's no meaningful progress. If they join, it could aid Ukraine's military efforts because the EU has a mutual defense clause for any member nation that is a victim of armed aggression on its territory. So basically, it looks like the EU has, I'm not an expert on EU defense clauses, but it looks like the EU would have mutual defense for any member nation. So I would assume that that is similar to the NATO defense clause. I know that the NATO defense clause is basically if you attack a NATO country, you're basically declaring war against all the NATO countries, which the U.S. is a part of, and there's 29, 30 countries in NATO. So if Ukraine is added into the EU, depending on exactly how the EU treaties work, Russia would either have to immediately stop, or it would be the start of World War III with the EU, the entire European Union, against Russia. And well, Russia's already threatened that anybody else who intervenes, that they would use nukes. Whether or not they do that or not, I mean, Russia's having a hard time alone with just Ukraine. If a whole bunch of other countries join in, Russia's in deep, deep trouble unless they use nukes. But I mean, the question here is that will this happen? And if this does happen, it's just the question is do we want this to happen? Is there any other way to stop Putin? And how far is this going to go? I mean, remember that 10 days ago, this war hadn't even started. And now it's like, will Putin ever even stop? And what is the way to stop him? And get this, Italian Premier Mario Draghi, who has been kind of going through some negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, kind of some peace talks, as a mediator, expressed little hope that peace talks will result in an end to the war. He says, Russia will continue to pound Ukraine, quote, until the country has surrendered, probably installs a friendly government and defeats the resistance. That's what the facts demonstrate. So this is what a third-party negotiator's opinion is. And at this point, it doesn't seem like Putin is going to stop at anything, because if he does, he's going to be seen as a failure. And the only other way to do this is to continue to sanction him so badly. The only other way is to force him into the collapse of his country's finances, which is literally happening by the day here. I mean, Visa, MasterCard, and American Express have now pulled out of his country. His stock market has collapsed, and they've literally had to stop it, pause it. His dollar, the ruble, is collapsing. And honestly, a lot of people are questioning, well, why did Putin do this? I don't think he meant for this to happen. I think that he meant for Ukraine to just either surrender because they're vastly outnumbered, or that they would fall just in a matter of a few days. I don't think that he, expected them to put up a fight like this. And he thought that they had a superior army. Ukraine has 1/10 the size of the army. They would go in and either bulldoze them, or they would just surrender right away. And now it's basically the whole world against Russia. Every country, every company in the world is basically pulling out of Russia, one company at a time. And every country is going against Russia, one country at a time. Not necessarily in war, but in basically everything else. And it's only a matter of time until, like, nobody wants to side with Russia on anything. I just don't think Putin was prepared for this. Remember when he did this with Crimea, and they basically took over with Crimea, they basically just gave up and took over the country. And yeah, they got sanctions, and it was worth it for him, at least, probably in his eyes, right? So he probably thought something similar to that would happen again, but it's a much bigger country. So he probably thought, yeah, we'll take it over. We'll get all that land. We'll get all those resources. We'll get all that, gas in the country, and we'll get trillions of dollars of resources. And yeah, we'll get some sanctions and stuff, but we're gonna put the USSR back together. And this time around, it's a lot different. The Ukrainian people have stood together, and they didn't fold. Like the Afghan people. When the Taliban took over, the Ukrainian people have just stood together, and Putin wasn't prepared for that. And if he was prepared for that, he expected them to fall quickly. And now it's basically the whole European Union, all of NATO, supplying Ukraine with weapons and sanctions beyond anything he expected. I mean, the sanctions are now tenfold beyond what he expected. So the problem is that now Putin's backed into a corner far, far beyond what he expected. Now, the problem is that nobody's in a good situation right now. Price of oil is skyrocketing. The price of gas is skyrocketing. There's no winners here. There's no winners in this situation. So stock markets are crashing, crumbling. In fact, the Dow Jones yesterday was down in the U.S. 800 points. I mean, I guess the only win is if you want to buy low and you're a long-term investor. Things are going to be rocky for a while. If you're a short-term investor, it's not a good time, But if you're a long-term investor, it's probably a decent time to buy. Which stocks are for long-term investors, in my opinion, unless you want to buy short and then sell on a quick upturn or something like that. But if you got pensions, 401ks, IRAs, retirement funds, anything like that. Probably a decent time to buy because we're at like around a 1-year low in the stock market. Crypto also at a significant downtrend, around a 40-50% low for a lot of crypto coins. It's just, but gas, it's the exact opposite. In fact, gas just hit an all-time high in the United States. Over $4 a gallon, and you've seen that video. Some places are nearing $7 a gallon. And hopefully this is temporary. The question is, how long is this going to go on? Honestly, this Russia conflict could go on for a while. If Ukraine has stiff resistance and they don't fold, and Russia doesn't fold, who knows? This could go on for months. And it's just it's going to be tough here. And if the U.S. does ban Russian oil, which is it's a mixed bag of feelings there, because it's the right thing to do emotionally, like in your gut, it's the right thing to do, but it's going to hurt people's pockets, and a lot of people just don't have any extra money right now, which is kind of like where like Congress is just like, you got to help people out right now. Like, yeah, we're doing the right thing, but it's like we got all this stimulus money. You got to help people out right now, right? It's just, that's what stimulus is for. And we've sent out this other stimulus money for the pandemic. Well, now inflation is actually hurting people worse right now. And you got to think about people on fixed income, people on low income, people on disability are actually being hurt worse economically, financially right now because of inflation. So yeah, like virus cases aren't that bad right now. I mean, a month ago they were at their all-time high with the spike from Omicron, and yeah, that's come down. I mean, a lot of people are still battling in the hospital from that, but the inflation from the end of the pandemic wave, we'll call it, is still, the after effects are actually the worst part of it right now, and I mean, I guess we'll say the war actually right now, because that's what's actually caused the spike up here in the last month from gas, and the problem is it's going to affect everything. It's going to affect groceries. It's going to affect everything you buy. It's going to go up because gas affects the price of everything. So Congress is going to need to think about the average everyday person here and how it affects their wallets, how it affects the family when they come home and they need to pay for food for their children, and grandma and grandpa are living on a fixed income and they got to pay for food on a fixed income. How are they going to do that? Whether it's a repeal of the gas tax, whether it's stimulus checks, whether it's extra SNAP benefits, pause on student loans, a whole collection of all these things. Congress is going to have to do something here, or do multiple different things here going forward. Let me know your thoughts on these and what you think they should do. Honestly, they'll probably do several of these things or a couple of these things. If history kind of shows what they've been doing during the pandemic, if you just listen to those things I've mentioned, They've done almost all those things previously here. So hopefully they can do them again here to kind of combat this inflation, some anti-inflation things here. Hopefully they can do these things again to kind of combat this next crisis that we're dealing with. So I'll keep you up to date here with everything going on here. Make sure to subscribe down below if you haven't yet. It's completely free to do so. It just makes it so you won't miss out on our videos here on YouTube. And remember that new videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. After subscribing, click the bell icon to get reminders when we go live on our YouTube channel here. You can click here to watch my newest video next. And you can click here to see how there is more stimulus checks being issued, and we're honestly seeing more states issue stimulus checks here all the time. And there's probably going to be a lot more issued here this year. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.